So good morning, everybody. It's March 26th, week 2. The class is MED220. And again, it was erroneously coded for Saturday morning, but I will be available Saturday morning as well on Zoom if you have any questions. And also, if you log in on Zoom on Saturday morning, you can also get credit for being on the live session. Because remember, the live sessions and the laboratories are mandatory. But if for safety reasons or just logistic reasons, because some of you are in externship, talk to me privately, and then we'll work something out. All right. So what was due today? Discussion 1 is due today, and well, not due today, due this morning, 9 a.m. And task 1, your draft resume. And I'll get to those of you who already sent me the draft resume. I'll get you my notes so that next week, when you submit your task 2 items for next week, right? That will be your final. And if you look also at the right here in the announcements, I have something from student services. Remember I told you pay attention to your Stratford email, pay attention to your your Stratford email and your announcements, because there is a health industry virtual job fair that's out. So there's businesses, and Epic. Let me tell you right now, Epic is like one of those for all of you into like healthcare admin. Epic is has a monopoly here in the DMV and in a lot of other places. They are the premier electronic medical records. They're in everything now. I remember 10 years ago, Epic was suggested. Now, because Inova fully adopted an Epic, and so did the other hospitals, it is now the gold standard for electronic medical records. And there are other places. And also, like I said, even though this may not be your thing, like hospice care or senior care, get your resume out, because a lot of these places are also affiliated with doctors' offices and with pharmacies. And I've shared with you guys, my wife is from the airline industry in the late 90s, early 2000s. But you guys know what happened. 9/11 ruined everything, and now with COVID ruined everything. But like I told you, the one place that will never be ruined by COVID is the healthcare industry. Actually, they need a lot of people. Nursing is inundated with calls for LPNs and also for our RNs, and we only have 4 graduates. Actually, 3 of them already passed their NCLEX. They already have jobs contingent upon submission of their NCLEX scores. So, something to look at, and also Google it yourself in your area. There's all these other doctors' offices that are already reaching out to people, because a lot of facilities, they're just overrun right now. Not because of inpatient stuff, but the doctor gets taken up of a lot of time with telemedicine. So there's a lot of paperwork to be done. There's a lot of billing to be done. There's a lot of scheduling to be done. Let's now get to what we're going to be talking about this week. So, and also the discussion regarding, I believe, oh yeah, this is a very interesting for the discussion for next week. What do you call that? This is well, at the time she was a young lady, this Miss Headley, and if you look at the discussion too, right? Did I miss putting the video? Oh yeah, here it is. Here's the video right here. So watch that and ask yourself, do you violate these 10 rules when you speak to people? Okay, because communication, if you recall your MED220, is a two-way street, right? You're trying to get a message to someone and they're trying to get a message to you. All right. And then ask yourself, because do you really listen? Do you actively listen to somebody when they're talking? Especially during lectures, or especially when you're meeting someone. So this is the video, 10 things. It's a TED talk, and you know I'm not a great fan of TED talks. So if I do pick a TED talk, it's a really good one. And Ms. Headley, and she's a professional, I think a professional PR person and interviewer. She talks about 10 things about how to talk to people, because that is our main topic for today, is um, your interview. So let's say you got a great cover letter, right? And you got a great resume. And remember, format is everything, appearance is everything. And I make it akin to dating, right? So if the person you're looking for is, disheveled, or they're not wearing the right thing, or they're not saying the right things, of course you're not going to get a second date. And this is the function of your cover letter and your resume. You want to get that interview. You don't want to be put on the to wait pile, because the people that I call today, 9 times out of 10 is the person going to be hired. And you guys know, we don't, as human resource managers or hiring managers, we don't call you that you didn't get the job. We only call you if you got the job, and everyone else has to go guess. So there's a protocol in play, and we're going to be talking about that. And just a quick review regarding resume. If you could look at this, do you see, wait a minute, where's the other resume? Do you see the different styles? Okay. And if you look at, where's the nursing one? Here's healthcare admin. If you look at healthcare admin, and you'll look at it, healthcare admin and nursing, you see how there's not a lot of words. Okay, it's straight and to the point. This even is a little bit wordy, right? The bullet points, not more than 3 or 4, and straight to the point, and make sure it has data. And you could also see is like the same thing up here is the same thing down here bolded. It's in the same format. So it's, again, if you're making things easier to read for your hiring manager, and it makes it easier for them to put you in the pile of, yes, I have to call this person today. And you also look at this nursing resume as you see there's no fluff in it. There's no, like, I have hobbies. I like taking long walks on short piers. None of that. It's straightforward. Here's what I got. And when you look here, right, tells you exactly what you're made of and what you do. And they use the medical terminology. But this particular sample, and I'll get my comments back to you guys by closing of business today and tomorrow morning at the latest. Because actually, I have a meeting today at 1:00 with a local healthcare company, and we're trying to see if we can get more administrative externships, especially for your HCA, HIM students. And that will also be great for the clinical students, because guess what? Don't they have clinical sites too? So I'll be doing my due diligence later today. So let's jump right in. Now that you know that you have to tailor the resume for the job. So let's say you have 6 places that you're applying for. You better have 6 tailored resumes that are tailored for the position, because the position that you want. And of course, resume checklist. We went over that. Cover letter. Now, I didn't go over the cover letter too much last week, but cover letter is important because it shows that, can you do business writing? And again, back to check the format. And if I already told you average time to check a resume is like 40 seconds, you can only imagine average time to check a cover letter is even less. But what does a human resources manager look for? In the cover letter, you look for is this, what they call block type correspondence. This is business block type. So that means everything is left justified. Everything's the same font size. Typically, it's Arial 12, and maybe you can push it to Arial size 10, but Arial 12 is the standard for healthcare. Now, when you do your name and your title, make sure you get that title correct, and make sure if they're a doctor or whatever, that you use their correct title. And you put colon here because this is a business meeting. Now, the first paragraph is always about where did you get where did you get the information to call them. The second session is goes what you do and what's important. What can I do for your company? So look at again, this has to be tailored as well. Look at the things that particular company wants, and then highlight your skill sets that match up best. And last but not least, this is the third paragraph is always about I call it the request. So this is when you're closing everything out, and you see, just like your discussions, you have a distinct beginning, middle, and end. And what did the middle provide? Data. It provided evidence. Don't go around saying, I'm a people person. What the hell does that mean? Right? Goes, you could talk about, well, it goes, I have training in customer service. I've been in customer service and retail for 10 years, right? All of these things. And last but not least, the request. And the request is, I would love to speak to you in person and show that you have a strong interest. That's another thing about the first and the third sections. Show your enthusiasm, that you're really excited. And what I like to do is, in the first section, I like putting in little tidbits of what I know about the company. Like, why am I writing to you? Well, I would love to have a position, entry-level position in your company. I hear that this and this company is doing great things and this, that, and I want to get into a ethical and profitable company that will help me grow so that I can help with their patients. Do you see how you butter them up a little bit? And also it shows that you did your homework, that you did research them and you know who they are. And the last, of course, is the request. Oh, by the way, my wife is going through a mentorship for George Mason University for healthcare admin. She was given a guide on what to do. By the way, it looks almost identical to this CDS guide that we're using as like our textbook. So even the major universities are now getting the hint. I think we have to help our students get jobs. Okay. Usually 2 spaces, sincerely, comma. Then you put your signature here, right? And handwritten if you're mailing or faxing, or scan it. Then you type your name and ENCL, or write the whole word in closures, colon, and then resume, references. So do you see how you're giving them everything so that you can make it easier for them to hire you? Instead of me having to call back at your references, me having to call back for details about your resume. If I give them everything, and again, you have a good cover letter, you have a good resume, then it leads them to call your references. Okay. And there's some samples here, cover letters. And I don't like these bullet things on cover letters, but even some other professors and some other hiring managers like it because it's quick, it's easy to read. But me, I like nice, short and simple paragraphs, just like this one. Very, very simple. Oh, by the way, and he goes, before all my wife's recent healthcare jobs, she used this CDS guide to get her job, because instead of Googling everything, what's a sample letter, what's this, what's that, found it herself. Okay, what's going on? What is going on? Why did it freeze up on me? Let's go back, and here's the CDS guide again. Let's go back. Why am I doing it the hard way? Okay, so now let's get on with the interview itself. So, one thing about the interview is you have to know yourself with respect to what can you offer your future employer. Okay, who are you and what? Now, a lot of students and entry level personnel go about it the wrong way. Even professionals, they go about it the wrong way. They show the interview process as a process where I get to show off. Wrong, right? So many professors, double PhDs, they come in and then they interview with us and they sit there and they try to dazzle the board with, oh, I did this and I did that and I did the other thing. I really wouldn't care less, because if you, I, I can pick any other professor that we have on staff and they can either match or surpass your resume as well. Um, I don't care what you did in the past. What is important to the HR manager is that, do you know what skill sets you have? Do you have evidence of it? And it's more of, what can you do for me? I really don't care about you, but let's be real here, that your employer cares about your skill sets that will enhance their business. Okay, so one of the things you could do is you identify 10 work, school, volunteer experiences. And even the work, even if it's not healthcare, when you think about it, there are a lot of things in healthcare that match up with a retail job, that match up with a food services job. Food services, don't you have to answer to the Department of Health? Don't you have to clean up before and after? Also, if you work in retail, heavy customer service, there's also inventory. It also costs money. There's accounting. So these skills and accomplishments, and I remember I was telling you guys about, I had a student about 4 or 5 years ago. She was a manager at a small Subway for about 3 or 4 years. And she was like, with her current resume, and she graduated medical assisting with us, and she couldn't get a job. And I go, because you were thinking of your, she was thinking of herself as, oh, I work at Subway, I just make sandwiches. No. And when we revamped her resume, fast forward, do you think she was hired as an MA? She was hired as an office manager with a considerable bump in pay, because they didn't really need the clinical person. They needed a manager, and she was a manager. She dealt with money. She dealt with corporate. She dealt with compliance. She dealt with what happens when there's poor customer service, right? Oh, by the way, fast forward, she's now an LPN, right? So this little exercise, before you go on your interviews, do it, and then ask yourself, how many of these skill sets match up to what my employer wants? And if all of them match up, guess what? You're a great candidate. Another thing you also have to understand is Jahari's window, perception. Let's look at that. This is Johari's window, and you may have seen it. You may have seen this in your psychology, your Psych 110 class, if you have a Psych 110 class. Now, it's separated into four things. Well, let me not do the business one. Let's do the person. So there are things that are known by others about you. There are things that are not known by the outside world about you. There are things that you know about yourself, and there are things that you don't know about yourself that you unconsciously do. So things that you know and things that others know, that's the open quadrant, or that's the open section of your personality. To me, what do you call that? I had a sensei, I had a martial arts teacher, and He was from Okinawa, and he said Japanese people, they're two-faced. They're sometimes even three-faced or four-faced. And I said, that's a pretty racist thing to say. And he was like, he goes, no, you don't understand what I mean. He goes, everyone has your public persona, the thing that everyone knows. And he goes, since he was Okinawan slash Japanese, he said, and he goes, there's other things that you don't, and this is I was what, 14 when he said these things to me. But again, when you're 14, you got Yoda in front of you. You don't understand half of what the man's saying. But now that I'm older, he was incredibly wise. And he taught me and my friends a lot of things about life that we didn't get on. Now I totally get when I'm older. And that's a great teacher who not only teaches you about the thing that you signed on for, right? For me, was just, being able to kick and punch people in the face, right? But he taught me a lot more about respect and about how others perceive you. And one of those things is, do you know your persona to other people? Like, for example, you guys know me as, oh, he's a talker. But in real life, I have a lot of social phobias. So that is my hidden part of my personality. So remember when my sensei said, he goes, oh, Japanese people are two-faced, three-faced, four-faced. Well, this is another face that you have. You know about yourself, right? And it's not known by others. So for example, you see me in the mall when all of this craziness is over, because I love going to the mall. I love looking at how expensive everything is, and I just buy it up on eBay anyway. Well, if you see me ignoring you or walking away from you, that's part of my my personality, and it's a social phobia thing. I just don't like talking to people, especially if I have my kids around. I only like to focus on my children. I know it's a weird thing. My wife complains about it all the time because we're in the mall and someone will like, Dr. Garais, and then I walk the other way, and my wife goes, I think that's one of your students. And I go, nope, didn't hear anybody. I'm going to go get me an orange Julius now. So that's hidden. That's not known by others. And it's something that you have to mitigate. Now, these two, right? This is the one that you have to figure out, that you talk to the people who are closest to you. Things that you don't know about yourself, but other people see it, right? Like for me, someone told me when I was first started teaching, they were in order to teach in the state of New York, you have to have a teaching license. So for you have to go to these teaching sessions, and they record the sessions, and everybody in the class was saying, "Oh, you do this, that, and the other thing," and I was like, "No, I don't." And then I watched the video with them in the room critiquing on it, and this is nice because once you start picking up what are your blind spots, things that you don't know about yourself, but things that everyone knows, like what's a blind thing about me? Oh, on meetings, I'm hyper aggressive and I take things very seriously and I take things kind of semi-personally. I kind of know that about myself, but I forget it. So at meetings, I am the stick in the mud. I am the negative Nelly in the room in meetings. And sometimes I watch people's, especially on Zoom, I watch my boss and people's faces drain when I start talking sometimes. So that's something that now I'm moving it into where? The open. And that's what that list of getting to know who you are. Now, here is the great unknown, your subconscious, right? Things that you don't know and things that people don't know, right? And that's really hard because the only way to get at this part is through real self-introspection. Really look at yourself and really look at, and with respect to, for this particular lecture, your skill sets, okay? Like how do you know that you can deal with ridiculous amounts of stress if you've never been, you know? My 13-year-old always asks me that. Actually, Duke used to always ask me that when he was Duke is my eldest boy. He's a Marine, and he used to ask me that. How will I know how will I know if I won't run, in a fight? And I go, "You've been in a fight before?" He goes, "Yeah, but not with people shooting at me." And I go, "This is the same thing." Right. And now he kind of knows. And everything here, you're trying to bring it to the open. And when you're looking for a job, you are trying to show that that your skill sets that right? And then the others, especially your HR, your hiring manager, they're the ones who need to know about those skill sets. That's why last week when I was talking about why bilingual students put their bilingual, you know, assets all the way in the bottom of the resume. You should be putting it at the top of the resume, because the more things that you can bring from your blind, hidden, and unknown quadrants into the open, and then properly communicate that as skill sets, then that's the function of this interview. Now, one thing you also should be, for especially nowadays that they have quick Zoom and telephone conferences, many times the office manager would call just to talk to you real quick. If you've ever experienced that, they do that because they want to see if, do I really need to call the doctor or the office manager? So when I was a lead medical assistant and also an office manager, my boss would make me call like the top 20, and then she would say, schedule the best 3. And I was like, okay. Now, the ones that I scheduled were the ones who can make this thing called an elevator pitch. And what's that? Goes, an elevator pitch is a way that goes, you can get everything or all the highlights about who you are and what you could do for my company. He goes, because the elevator pitch is all about how in a short period of time, in the span of you traveling a couple of floors on an elevator, how you can how you can sell yourself. Elevator pitch is typically it's a term in business. Maybe if you guys watched that movie Wolf of Wall Street with Leonardo DiCaprio, there's a famous line in there by the author of the book Wolf of Wall Street. It goes, "Hey, sell me this pen. You got 30 seconds." So that's what an elevator pitch should be. It's short. You memorized it, right? So how does it go? What's the format? It goes, "Hi, my name is Nelson." It goes, "I'm a graduating senior for Stratford University." It goes, "I hear that you guys have an opening, and I think I'm your I'm your candidate because I've had this and this experience. I have this and this and that, and this is, I believe, where I can make an impact and that I could be of value to your company." Right? And I would love to talk to you about it. Now, do you see how it kind of mirrors your, what do you call that? Your cover letter, right? What did your cover letter do? You introduce, why are you talking to the person? What is the skill set or the evidence of how you can help? And then lastly, a request. Like, hey, do you think we can have some lunch, or maybe are you free, right? He goes, or you could shoot me an email. And that's why wherever I go, you guys may see me in class. I have you see my keychain around my neck. Do you guys also see the pink USB that has an updated resume and cover letter and resignation letter? How many times I've always wanted to, I've had to use that, and it got me positions quite quickly, because I'm like, oh, I'll be at Kinko's, I'll be right back, or I can email you this from my phone, because I have also those documents on the cloud, so I can easily email it to you. Oh, you want my LinkedIn address? Here. So that's what an elevator pitch is, right? Phase 1, who you are. What is your objective? To get this job. It goes, show your interest, show your qualifications and skill sets. And then at the very end, have a request. How many times in business have I done that? I've cornered, because My business is a production company. We do parties, we do charity events, we supply everything, the chairs, you name it, I supply it. Now, a lot of managers, they get solicited every 2 seconds, especially in the club. And also many times when you're speaking to them, it's the end of the night, it's 2 a.m., 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Everyone's tired, everyone had a shift and a half. But how many times my elevator speech, and I do the same thing. How you do it? It goes, let me give you an example. I did, maybe you guys heard of Artscape. It's a big street party, and they were hiring DJs, even though it was a volunteer basis. Um, I started off as a volunteer and then got contract and then got paid. So it went like this, and I did not know the president at the time, and she was at a meeting at a art showing that I was at, and then a friend of mine goes, "Oh, that's so and so. She does Artscape," and I'm like, "Oh, cool," because I want to do Artscape and I want to be there for 3 days and getting paid for 3 days of doing nothing but playing hip hop music that I love. So this is how it went. Let's call her Stacy, for example. Hi, good evening, Miss Stacy. Hi, how you doing? And it goes, we haven't met yet, but I'm Nelson. And it goes, and I'm with Star 3 Sounds, and we're also here donating our time, for the kids and stuff like that. And he goes, I hear that you guys are opening bids for DJs, and he goes, and I've been a DJ, and you could see my setup here. We've been doing this for 30 years, and I was wondering if you got some time tonight, maybe my wife and I can buy you some drinks. Or if you're not available, I goes, here's my card. And I goes, I'd love to talk to you about how this can all go down. You know what happened? She took my card, didn't really smile, but guess what? She heard me and my boys play. And then the next thing you know, 2 weeks later, I get a call. Why? Because I was able to do what? Get that card in her hand, be friendly, have the offering. And then she remembered me. And also, guess what my wife did? She kind of hung out with her people all night instead of watching me DJ. Do you see how networking also comes into play? And then we got the bid. And then COVID came. But hey, when everything goes back to normal next August, I'm sure we'll all, actually, I'm now getting calls for bids in August, September, and December. So hopefully my company will get back on its feet because I miss having extra money. Now, do you see how the effective parts that I was talking about? Are you relatable? It goes, are you human? Did you make a connection? Now, did you notice how networking comes into play? Did I define? Was I specific? Okay. What was my edge? Did you see me in the middle of that quick elevator speech that I've been doing this for 30 years? Right? Do you make it interesting? Did you give something for that made them interest? I noticed she was drinking mimosas from 6 p.m. So of course she's a drinker. So of course I offered her a drink, and I made it safe because it's me and my wife would like to offer you a drink. We made it brief. Do you see how quick I talked about that? And my performance that night and the card and my wife made it memorable. And then I get a call. Hi, and I didn't even know who she was. And I picked up, and she was like, "It's me, Stacy from King of What?" And he goes, "You are you friends with Flag?" And I go, "Yeah, I've been." I guess I've been friends with him around here. He goes, "Yeah." I guess he tells me, "Yeah, you did great. You did this and this." Next thing you know, you're starting a conversation. Conversation leads to what? Contract. Contract leads to money and repeatable money, and that's how you do business, right? So another thing is not only knowing yourself, know the employer. So the next time I met Miss Stacy, did you not think that I Googled the heck out of her and her nonprofit and what Artscape is and that whole artist community in Baltimore. Oh, I did everything. And oh, by the way, once I found that I was up for the bid, I started schmoozing my way into people that were close to Miss Stacy. So now she was like, "Oh," "You know Tati from Spacey Con?" And I go, "Oh man, I do free parties for her all the time." Next thing you know, and remember, interest. Were you interesting? And the more you get out there, and it's the same thing also for your job. If you're out there in professional societies and then you know people, right? Then it makes life um a whole lot better and a whole lot easier. Some of my colleagues always ask me, how do you know what's going on with healthcare and education in general? How do you know we were going to be inspected? How do you know this, that, and the other thing? Because what? I talk to people, right? So know as much as you can about them, right? And because it goes back to this, are you relatable? Do you know something about them? Are you, it goes, did you show enthusiasm? How can you show enthusiasm for somebody you don't even know? He goes, have you ever met like someone who tried to pick you up in a bar and they know nothing about who you are or what you're doing there or anything, and they're just putting a whole bunch of, corny lines at you? No, you're not going to hang out with that person, right? But, if it's a person who knows a little bit about, uh, because my boy Philly B, he used to be one of my DJs, but he and I had a falling out, but we're still friends. He is not a handsome man, but he has a beautiful professional wife and a lovely child, and he's got the gift of gab. And one of the things that he does is he makes things relatable to you. Like, for example, he spots you with, like, Jimmy Choo's. He knows the model and make and model of your shoes, and he would be come up to you and like, "Girl, where'd you get that?" And he goes, "That's not your style of shoe. I see you more in this, that, or the other thing." And I'm looking at him like, "How do you know about shoes?" And he goes, "Oh, my girl told me all about my shoes." And then I looked it up, and guess why he was schmoozing on the girl? Well, she was a local influencer who had, like, like 50,000 followers. We get her to our parties. What happens? Even if she brings just 10% of that following or even 5% of that following. And what happened? Our parties in Baltimore went nuts. We were like packed to the brim. Because why? He was making himself relatable. He was doing an elevator pitch, right? Yeah, but the problem with business, and especially you do business with friends, it gets rough. Say what you mean what you say. Body language is everything, okay? Even on the webcam, okay? Actually, on the webcam, on your Zoom meetings, they get amplified, okay? And if you could see here, this is, all of this is like 10 years old, but I bet you anything, you could look up data on this, but this is so true. Even in your clinical practice, body language accounts for the majority of the message. And then number two is what? Your tone. If you remember your MED140, we talked about your telephone smile, right? What sounds better? Good morning, doctor's office, or hi, good morning. This is Nelson, Dr. Duranlis' office. How can I help you? You see that fake chipper smile and tone. It's amazing how you can turn patients. When I listen to my wife when she's on the phone, since she's working from home, all her training culminates to what? Tone. And sometimes she's on webcam with the doctor and with the lab. So from the waist on up, she's dressed professionally, put makeup on. Now we bought an extra ring light in her office so that she can look better and communicate easier. So these are just be cognizant in your interview about your body language and your tone. And remember, the tone, even though they throw you for a loop, it's very interesting when we interview professors who want to come to our university. And a lot of them think that, oh, I have a PhD from Harvard, so it's going to be a no-brainer. Well, maybe if you go to GW or George Mason, but we're a small university, and we vet all of our teachers personally. So my job on these meetings is to be the devil's advocate. I'm the I'm the jerk in the room. So I'm the one who will pick apart your resume and pick apart your experience. And one of those things, let me give you an example of the Harvard guy. The Harvard guy, he was coming in for business a couple of years ago, double PhD, brilliant, wrote a lovely book, several books, by the way. Right. But the question I had for him is what he was all chipper until I said, so what makes you think you can teach our students? Right. I said it in that tone of voice. And then it seemed like he started to fall apart. And then I kept on picking at him to the point where the head of business was like, looking at me like, Dr. Garais, back off. Now, why did I do that? Not only to be a jerk, but I'm testing him because what if he gets a really bad student? The best teachers work under adversity. So if you go to a place like Harvard where you lecture to a room of 50 people and no one asks you a question, that's not the profile of student that we have here at Stratford. We have working students, hardcore moms and dads and single parents, and they want to know, like, if I ask you a question, are you going to answer me it, or are you going to tap dance around it? And then that's what I did to the guy. And what happened? Well, some of these things happened. That big bearded smile that he had went away real fast. Then now he doesn't want to look at me. And so I went, doctor, I'm over here. And I could see he got even more nervous, right? The facial expressions were hard to hide, right? Sometimes watch out if you play with your hair or you have too many hand gestures. Ooh, this is my big thing, right? A weak handshake. It's not a macho thing. It's more of a, like, are you assertive? Can you stand up for yourself? So practice that handshake. And also a weak introduction as well. Like, when you're doing a webcam, you're like, hello, right? Instead of, hi, good morning, welcome, hi, how you doing? Right? You see, it's brighter, warmer, right? And fidgeting, playing with the hair, too many gestures. They're distracting. We were interviewing a nurse a couple of months ago, and we didn't pick her because she kept on looking away. I think she was looking at notes or something. She kept on looking at the way of the screen. And then I even mentioned, I'm like, I'm sorry, doctor, do you need to take a minute? Because it seems that something's distracting you. And she just kept on doing it. And it was actually ticking off Dr. Lexima. And she was like, Dr. Lexima muted her mic and went, what is she doing? And I'm like, I don't know. And she just kept on looking away from the screen, checking her notes. I don't know what she was doing, writing things down. Instead of what? Maintain that eye contact, have that smile, right? Have a genuine smile and stand up, be assertive. Now, assertion versus aggression. I've had those interviews too. Like when I push a little bit, they get really defensive. Oh, I did that at a meeting the other day. But so what did I do? I kept them pushing because, I like to. It's part of the negative parts of my personality. Especially if I expose a weak link in your armor, I get very, as a clinician, I get very interested in that, because remember, clinical personnel, what do we like? We like seeing pathology, and if I find it, I have a bad habit of digging at it. But in a way, it's good because if a future professor can't do these things and can't recover from these things and from just simple questioning, then they're not the professor for you, and that's how I feel. And I can tell you right now, everyone who I've ever voted negatively not to be on campus, even if they got voted positively by the group, they never stayed. And it's funny because it's all documented, and then everyone always says, "Oh, Dr. Garais called it," right? Because of these interviewing techniques. Now, There are, in human resources, there are acceptable questions and there are unacceptable questions. Now, most people interviewing you don't have training, so they may sometimes ask an unacceptable question. So, what kind of questions you're looking for? National origin. Many of us are from other places, right? But what's acceptable to say is, are you authorized to work in the United States, right? But and that is a nice way of saying, are you a United States citizen? But have any of you, especially if you were born in another country, like when people ask me where are you from, I say New York City because most majority of my life I grew up in New York. But then they say very very semi-racist thing like, no, where are you really from? You know what I'm saying? That's that's unacceptable, and you can't do that. But do not do what I had a student about 6 7 years ago. She was really good, and she remembered all of this, and she told the HR manager, "You can't ask me that question." And the HR manager was like, "Excuse me?" And she goes, "According to my training in my MED220 class, that's an unacceptable question, and it's a little bit on the racist side." And the guy was taken aback, and he even called me like, "What the hell are we teaching your people?" And then I go, "What did you ask her?" And he goes, "I asked her where she originally was from." I'm like, "Yeah, it's a little bit off, right?" But again, this is HR training, and nowadays a lot of people have, a cultural sensitivity and cultural diversity training now, so that you don't, you ask it the right way, right? But again, if you ask it in a nice tone, right? But I've been asked this question so many times, and also in a social setting, right? That's why the other day someone did that to me, and I just told them Afghanistan, and then left me alone after that. Age, are you over 18? Oh, don't ask how old you. Don't ask your date of birth. Just look at it in the job application, which actually they shouldn't even ask you that as well, right? Um, I got in trouble at MedTech because my boss told told an applicant she was too young, and that's against the law. That's ageism, and that's against the law, and it's unacceptable. You are not allowed to ask if you're married or if you have kids, right? But people do, because it's actually discrimination if you discriminate against marital status and family status, and children and age. And think about discriminate. We discriminate all the time in human resources, but the things that you discriminate on are should be based on talent or on skill sets. You can't discriminate a person on characteristics of a human being that are not in their control, like national origin, age, marital status, family status, right? And religion, right? You can't. I remember I was interviewing for Trinity Private School. And they asked me if I was Catholic, and I said, and I just politely asked. He goes, "Why? Is it a requirement for me to teach in your science department?" They're like, "No, no, no, no. It's just a question we had because Trinity is, I believe, it's either Episcopalian or Catholic." And they can't ask you if you're a Democrat because these are things that should not affect your performance. Disability, right? Do you have any disabilities that would prevent you from performing the duties of your job? That's the only extent, right? But I can't ask you about your health status. Or um, and it's the same thing with school. If you have a learning deficiency, I can't ask you that, even though I see you struggling with math or struggling with this or struggling with that. I may be able to diagnose it and look at you and the way your performance is, but I am not by law, right? And the law in education is called FERPA. And to ask you things like, how's your health? Do you have any disabilities? The student or the applicant has to mention it. Um, Background checks. Have you ever been convicted of a crime that is reasonably related to the job in question? And for any healthcare, it's felony. Any class felony, you most probably won't be able to get a job. But I cannot ask you bluntly, have you ever been arrested? Because being arrested is something totally different than being convicted. All right. I can't tell you how many times. Well, I can tell you how many times I've been arrested, but have I ever been convicted? No, I have not. Right. But I was a kid. I should have been. Stupid. Personal. Only ask regarding skill sets. That's why I forgot it was Delta or United. It was like 15, 20 years ago. And my wife was a ground stewardess, but she had a lot of friends who were flight stewardess, and they were constantly being harassed about their weight. They actually Manila Air and other international airlines were actually measuring. Imagine in 1999 and 2000, you'd think that the world would be beyond this, this level of sexism, but it wasn't. And because your flight stewards have to be easy on the eyes, right? That's what they do for marketing. Ever see that? I forgot, was it Indonesia Airlines or something like that? They had all their flight stewardesses in bikinis or something like that. That's craziness, right? But this is the beauty of healthcare. No, we're only talking about performance. And if your job requires you to lift 50 pounds, I need to know about that. But I can't talk to you about your height, your weight, and again, things that are not germane to your skill sets. Military, of course. Did you serve? And what branch? Right? Because there may be some benefits that are applicable, right? But you don't ask them about their about the details of their discharge. Now, some of these unacceptable, like especially if you're working for a government or you have top secret clearance or you have some sort of security clearance. So these things they have to ask. Because like for example, we have a professor that works for the FBI. They ask all of this, and then they interview your supervisor, and they also interview your coworkers, and they ask really personal questions. And the big number one question that they ask if you try to work for the government is, does this person have any significant debt? Now, why would they ask that? They ask that because if you have a significant amount of debt, that means someone can bribe you with a decent amount of money for you to do something illegal. And that's their big thing. And actually, that's one of the biggest things when they do a background check for security clearances. They look at your financial statements. Where do you put your money? How do you spend it? Right? Because it's real easy to pick out who are the addicts or who are the people who have gambling problems. Did you hear recently, like there was a whole bunch of public officials who they were doing horrific things. Why? Because they had a gambling problem. They had a drug problem, right? Now, phone interviews. This also applies to your Zoom interviews because nowadays everything's Zoom. So you've seen all those videos of Zoom gone bad. Right now, I'm in what I call the family bunker. I'm in a basement. I have a closed door, and my children are all the way upstairs, right? Or the ones that are here. So right now, you don't hear anything. It's free of distractions, free of noise, and I'm in a basement. There's no windows. There's nothing for me to look out of. There's only me and this screen, right? My phone is fully charged. I have 2 servers in my house, and my computer is designed that if it goes down, it logs on to the other server automatically. So if you see my screen glitch, that means it's switching out servers, all right? I always have a pad and a pencil right next to me, right? So I can write down some little things. And you could do that while still being perfectly still on your webcam. Another thing you could do is have a closed or locked down browser so that nothing else comes up. So when I'm doing class, you see here on the side, all my alerts are turned off. So I don't get, nothing will distract me. And again, be cognizant of your posture, how you smile, and be cognizant of your background. Again, the other night, my wife and I were watching, like top 10 Zoom fails from 2020 or something like that. They're hilarious. Like how many people, like during a lecture, oh, I'm going to go to the bathroom. Let me bring my laptop. Or let me turn on my webcam when I'm only wearing underwear. And it's funny, but when it's happening to you, uh, um, it's awful. And all of us have been, especially me, since I'm on this thing all day, have been victims of Zoom bloopers. Okay, so something to consider, and be early, be ready. Situation, task, approach, and results. So this is a common HR approach for interview. It's called the STAR approach. So you can also look up like top 20 questions and have your canned answers ready. And what do I mean by canned? Let's say, for example, when they ask you like, how'd you get into this business? What do? Mentally, I open up a can, I open it up, and I already now have my answer. And of course, you don't want to sound super rehearsed, but you definitely don't want to sound unprepared. So when you're talking about the job, and you have to know things like, what are you proud of professionally? What have you done? Right? Did you ever have a leadership role? How many times I ask people, oh, I've never been a manager or anything. And I go, has your manager ever been stepped away? Have you ever been on your own? Yeah, a couple of times. Well, that's a leadership role. Is there a time that you ever picked up a task at work that no one wanted to pick up? Have that ready, write that down. Strengths and weaknesses, right? Don't be one of those people who memorize like it goes, well, my weakness is that I care too much and I love too hard. That's stupid, right? Actual have a weakness or be honest. Oh, I'm honest when I interview. I got a temper. It goes, but I temper that now with passion. Now, do you see when I say but, it releases or it negates everything that I said before it? So when I interview, yeah, because I got a short temper. It goes, but I believe I have now translated that into what? A greater passion for the things that I have to do. And the strength. And remember, strength and weaknesses is a common question. Make sure you have evidence ready, right? So every time I'm like, oh, my strength is like, oh, the students love me. So then I asked the professor, do you have any student satisfaction rates, PD rates? And then I asked them, they were like, what are those? And I go, okay, you don't. Then I look up the professor on Rate My Professor, and out of 5, they have 1 star. So what are you talking about? I love my students and they love me. That's a crock. And I see right through it. Our last, oh my God, about 3 years ago, I posed that question to this new math professor, but we were in such desperate need of a math professor, we hired him. And that guy had 1 star out of 5 when he taught for Mason. And I'm going, oh, this might be a mistake. His very first month with us, he came to campus early, and another student in another class came to the campus early, and then he yelled at her for coming to class early, and she wasn't even in his class. And I'm like, psycho. And we kind of knew it because he was like, oh, when someone says everyone loves me, liar, right? And also, if they say everyone loves you, because I remember I interviewed Professor Gorgi, who's one of your medical billing and coding professors. I've known her for 10 plus years. I interviewed her and she goes, oh, everyone loves me. And then she produced a 99% student satisfaction rate score with evidence, with paperwork. So I'm looking at it like, yeah, I have no choice. I got to hire her. She's a sweetheart, and she became a sweetheart. How do you deal with disgruntled customers? And give me a specific time. not what you would do in a real in a fantasy world. What did you do in the real world with realistic things? Like I had another professor like I kicked them all out and I handled my business. Her. Did we hire that guy? No, because it was unrealistic. That's not how you handle a class, right? But the professor that said, well, I took them some time out, and then after class, I had a one-on-one session, and it took a couple of sessions to hash out an agree to disagree with my student. That's the kind of person we like to hire at Stratford. Well, at least the ones that go through when I'm in committee. Tell me a time where you impressed your boss. See, these are called, tell me about a time. Tell me about a time. This is called a behavioral interview. Your actual behaviors in the wild, your actual behaviors in the real world, and give examples and give data, right? Never, never, ever, ever badmouth your previous employers. Let's say you got fired, right? This is what I say. I was I was let go by the company due to philosophical differences. But if you look at my resume, I have this satisfaction rate. I also have maintained this and this budget and this and this. So it shows that yes, they let me go, but when I was there, I performed. Okay. And when your weaknesses, talk about your mistakes, right? Talk about what you learned and what you fixed from it, because I personally don't vote for any professor or anybody who says that I'm flawless. What did one professor say to me? I have never been absent. What happened to him? I think it was like the third day of class. He called it absent, and I'm like, yeah, what happened to never? Right? But I voted no on that joker, but I got outvoted because he was a really nice guy. Oh, let's see. Interview questions. And here are some classics. And you could also look them up. So don't you think you could sit and now formulate your canned answers? You don't have to memorize them, but at least, uh, um, have an answer ready, because this is what I hate as a former hiring manager when they do make those little miscellaneous sounds, or when they said, "Can I get back to you on that?" I gotta. And I'm like, "What? You don't know how to answer a question, right?" So these are classic questions, and you should take your time before your interview, way before your interview. Heck, do it now, right? And then write down the answers of how you would answer it. And then, just like when you're writing an essay, you tweak it and you fix the answer and you make it a little bit more friendly, or a little bit more this, or a little bit more assertive. And how do you know how to do that? Well, you should have a mock interview. Somebody who is in career services, like Miss Alexandria Bushrod, and I have her PowerPoint. She would be talking to us today, but she's out there getting some placements. And also now she's, what do you call it? She's covering not only Woodbridge, not only Falls Church, but us as well, and sometimes Baltimore. So she's kind of on the busy side, but we have her presentation and you guys can look through that. I have that PowerPoint there. And shoot me any questions if you have any questions regarding that PowerPoint. So mock interviews are really great, and we're going to have one next week. I mean, is it next week or the week after? Well, you'll see on your tasks that you are to make an appointment, a Zoom appointment with me. Now, the Zoom appointment can be immediately before this class, or immediately after this class, or it could be on the Saturday morning, okay, at 9 a.m. So what are you going to do in the mock interview? You're going to send me a request, and then we'll make an appointment, and then we're going to pretty much go through. I'm gonna pretty much ask you questions as if you were trying to get a job at a pretend healthcare facility. So you send me, the job that you want, that you're working towards. Print it out from the internet, like some random medical assisting job, and then I'll pretend to be the HR, and then you make an appointment, and then we talk. Now, in that appointment, you must dress because as you would do in real life, you're gonna have your hair done, and you're gonna have, well, not done, but you have your hair, your makeup, and your face all presentable as if you were doing it in the real world. Which, by the way, my wife has an interview today at 1 o'clock, right? And I'm going with her, and I'm going to do my elevator pitch because not only for her mentorship, but stuff for my business too, and also for Stratford University as well. She already interviewed twice, not only with me, but another colleague of mine who runs a local pharmaceutical company. Why? And guess what? I gave her this checklist. And then from that checklist, we could see what my wife was good at, what she wasn't good at. And then what can we do? Improve on it, have another quick mock interview. Me and my wife did another one last night and fixed what we needed to fix, because today is the real deal. Today, and does she have her canned answers? Yep. We fixed a couple of things. And so it's not really about the grade. It's more about how, because we're going to look at this and we're going to open up Jahari's window nice and wide so that now you could see. And also another thing that I could do for you as well is I could record the session so you can play it back. The next section is what you should wear. And there's a lot of things online as well on what the difference between business formal and business casual, and what you should, and like I stated, like if you're interviewing with me, please don't not only wear the top, wear the whole thing. All right. You don't want to be wearing sweats underneath and then you accidentally stand up or the webcam pans back, and then it shows that you're not fully committed to be at that interview. Another important part is the follow-up. Right? We don't call you if you don't get it, but you should call back. And these paragraphs here, and goes, you should always say thank you. And I am a classic example how the thank you letter, right, saved me. I remember I told you guys I applied for the dean's position for Alexandria campus 7-8 years ago. I didn't get it. And that afternoon, I said, I gave them a wonderful thank you letter for the opportunity. That afternoon, they called me back and then said, we still have your resume, and there's a faculty lead for health science open. Would you like to take it? And then, of course, I said, absolutely. Now, just imagine if I didn't follow through. Just imagine if I didn't say thank you, because when they turn somebody down for a position, they're automatically going to think that what? They're angry, or there's some sour grapes, there's some resentment there. There was, I'll be honest with you, I was kind of pissed that I didn't get it, but they offered me something else. And because I was cordial and I said, thank you. And I said, and I got, and also I was riding the adjunct circuit at the time. So you don't burn your bridges, because I was thinking, oh, maybe I can get a couple of classes. Next thing I know, I got more than a couple of classes. 7.5 years later, I'm still here. Okay. So here's a nice little rubric or a nice little plan on how to follow up. Okay. And typically it's what, 1 or 2 weeks, right? And then you do what? Then you give them another call to see if the position was filled. And if the position was filled, right? How many times I get, thanks for nothing. Be cordial about it. Oh, okay, thank you. Is it okay if you, because I would like for you guys to keep my my resume and file, because let's say, for example, the job that you interviewed with, they made a mistake, right? That's happened to a couple of my students. They didn't get the job initially, but then when that other MA went in there, they didn't like her, they didn't like her personality, or for whatever reason, and then the number 2 person got the call. Okay, so. And here is a nice little letter of a thank you letter. It's a little bit on the long side, but you can shorten it down. And these are some nice examples. Again, interview checklist. This is what you should be looking at this week. Did I prep? Did I get ready? Okay. What am I going to do during? And then what do I need to do after? So this is really neat because the CDS guide tells you exactly what to do, okay? Exactly how to evaluate the job offer, things to consider, right? And could these be also questions that you can ask during your interview? Salary, benefits, what kind of office environment? Will I be in the field a lot? What's your company culture? Well, how's this? Why don't you look it up? And if you don't know what it means, you can ask them. Well, your company says that treating every patient one at a time or whatever. What does that specifically mean? Right? I'm just curious about that. It sounds great, but I want to know what you think it means. That's a great question, right? Who's going to be my boss? Who do I answer to? Okay. Networking. We talked about that, and I already mentioned these, right? Professional organizations, big, big, big. So when you guys graduate, the American Association of Medical Assistants, which I am also a member, right? It's worth the dues because they also have helpful hints, journals, websites, and also shows on your resume that you care about honing your profession. Also, many professional organizations give free to low cost continuing medical education, which again is a lovely tool to build your resume. Get involved with local campus events like that thing I just gave. Volunteerism. No one wants to hire you because you have no experience. How do you get an experience? Volunteer for it. Before I was in EMS, I think I had something like 1,000 ER hours, something like that. And also, imagine I was already a medical assistant with already 2 years hardcore emergency medical service experience. So that made my resume even better, right? Professional networking sites. Go on your LinkedIn, update it, and be active on it. And of course, every person you meet is a potential. Uh, um, there's a book. It's called, I forgot, it's 5 or 6 degrees of separation. Everybody in this free world is related to somebody by 6 degrees of separation or 5 degrees. I can't remember which one it is. For example, Barack Obama. I don't know him, but I know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who's close to Barack Obama. And let me give you an example how when I was at MedTech, I got the Honorable Judge Sotomayor, who at the time was just recently named a Supreme Court justice. My boss was asking me, how in heaven's name are you going to get her to come to our little itty bitty school in Falls Church, Virginia? Well, I remember one student telling me that her daughter has been working for her for years, was her nutritionist, and her daughter learned English at MedTech. And then I asked her, my student, can you give me this? I will make this letter, right? And it was in Spanish, my broken Spanish, and it was from me and my campus president, who we talked about in the letter how both my campus president and I are both immigrants. My campus president was from Colombia, and I'm from the Philippines, and how we are inspired by people who are brave enough to come to this country and not know how to speak English. Now, do you see how networking? Nothing happened for like 4 months, right? Because she's busy, we didn't think anything of it until I received in the mail a press junket. What? Right? And it was Telemundo. And they were like, we hear that you've contacted Justice Sotomayor, and she's about to say yes formally. And because we need the following press things, A, B, C, D, E. Now, going forward, do you see how you can't get what you want unless you ask? and you got to at least try, you know. And every person you meet, you don't know. And that's why I always say, be humble. You don't know who that person is. You don't know who they're connected to or what they can do for you. And again, back to what I was saying last week, it's not who you know, it's what you know. I mean, it's not what you know all the time, it's who you know. And here's the addenda: what they know about you. And you know what was the crazy part of all of this, right? This was planned months in advance. I never got a handshake. I never got a pat on the back because I left before Justice Sotomayor came to my campus. But it was a big thing, and it was on TV. It was on anything. And then um, some of my staff said, you know, I find it ironic that the one guy who helped put all this together is no longer with the company. But, you know, do I care? No. Because did I service my company? Did I service my boss? Yes. And I did and I did something really cool. And now I could look at her visit and like, hey, I did that. Right. So, you know, and do you think I could put that on a resume? You betcha. Right. Actually, I have the thank you letter too in my portfolio, right? From Chief Justice Sotomayor, and it's really cool, right? So here's some professional organizations, of course, in health science. AMT, which is the American Medical Technologists, they are the ones who do your registered medical assisting examination. So it's good to be part of them. NHA isn't in here, but it should be. National Healthcare Healthcare Workers Administration, something like that. And the other one is really, really good is American Heart Association, because they have a lot of healthcare things that you can get into. And then, of course, pick your battles. Pick something that you know you love. Like me, it's National Kidney Foundation and the Juvenile Diabetes Fund. I'm big on that, and they have a lot of political connections, so it keeps me in the loop. Okay, the power of your networking. Of course, we already talked about that. And remember, it's like 6 degrees of separation. I gotta look that up because it's now bothering me. 6 degrees. Yeah, it's 6 degrees of separation. So it's the theory that everyone's separated by 6 different people. Now, all these are nice. Twitter, Facebook, it's nice, but the big one, LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn is the Facebook of jobs, and there's how to build online, and there's a lot of free training in there and recommendations and stuff like that. My wife and I got a low to no cost managerial training for a fraction of the cost because of the groups that my wife is associated with in LinkedIn. She also, because of LinkedIn, knew about a George Mason hiring meeting at the very last minute, like 40 minutes before it started, which helped her get her current position. All right. Current assessment websites, nice to know. You can look at them, look in there, right? Career development. Okay. Let me talk about this one more thing, portfolio, and I've been mentioning that. What's a portfolio? Well, a portfolio is it's kind of like a scrapbook of who you are, right? Professionally. A record of professional development, any proof of exceptional performance, okay? Your accomplishments. So it's evidence, okay? And it's paper evidence. And, you know, for other, nowadays it of course has your resume and sample cover letter, sample resume. Also in your portfolio have backup resumes on good resume paper, same, all of this on quality paper. You can get good resume paper and folders and custom folders online and in your, Office Depot, that kind of thing. But if you look here, for health science, what do I have in mine? I think I should bring in mine or make a video and show you mine. Like I have any certificates of achievement, certificates of completion, and recent, any letters of commendation or letters of thank you. I've had dozens of letters of thank you. Medical school, I remember, required 24 letters from physicians. I had something like 34 letters from heads of departments in 6 different hospitals, and they're people who know me from actual performance. What else I have in there when I went to medical school? I also put in my 2 letters of commendation when I was in EMS. One for diligence, like, for service, and the other one was bravery in the field. So I had that in there as well. And I put here, stick sheet or login sheet. And again, you put all of that stuff there. 9 times out of 10, they don't look at it, but the very fact that you have it there, like how many times I'm like, oh, would you like to look over my portfolio? They almost never look at it, but when they do, it's what? It's got all these things in it, right? And when you have that, it's very, very impressive. And it sets up your human resources file or your HR file. Every employee, if you work for, a legit, company, you have your employee file. So you have your social security number ready. You have all your tax withholding forms. You have all of that and all of this all in a nice folder. You can go to Office Depot and get a nice, they have this faux leather, and mine has like plastic inserts to keep everything all, nice and neat, and they can flip through it, and it's nice having it. Another thing that I also have in there are all the volunteer organizations that I work for, and letters from their presidents stating the things that I've done for their community and for their organization. And it makes your resume way more powerful, right? And because your resume could be really nice and polished, but without any evidence, is not good. It's just lip service. And we all nowadays, we need evidence. How to act in externship, that's easy peasy. Just look over that. So that's the, and there is a checklist for externship. I have it if you guys are interested in. And the rest, you guys can look over, and that concludes week 1 and week 2. So what's due for next week? Of course, discussion 2. Look over this guest speaker PowerPoint from Alexandria Bushrod, right? Shoot me any questions if you have any questions about what Ms. Bushrod and Career Services can do for you. And the discussion 2 is based on this YouTube link right here for this TED Talk. And the task 2, of course, is once I submit to you later today, your task 1 submission was your draft resume. Once I get back to you, your the corrections, things that you should fix, your task 2 should be your finalized resume. Now, what's then going to go happen for next week? Okay, so sometime, in the next couple of days or so, shoot me an email. And my email, of course, and my contact information is right here in your announcements on what's a good date and time. And, preferably around the day of the exam, not the exam, of this class. So I can do it as early as 8 a.m. on Friday morning and as late as 11 a.m., 12 noon on Fridays. And I could also do it at 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. all via Zoom. And remember, once you schedule a time for the mock interview, hopefully you'll have your finalized resume, and for your mock interview, require also a cover letter. Okay, so once you get make the appointment, email me your cover letter, and of course, you already have emailed me your your final draft of your resume. And then we go through, you know, a quick interview process. Takes 20 to 25 minutes. Make sure to dress and all that jazz. And that will be your task 3 grade. And that will be next week. Then next week, we jump right into the clinical stuff, which is a review of your MED220 stuff, like vital signs. And there's a nice little vital signs quiz you could take, right? And then in the coming weeks, we talk about, stuff that we do. Now, the midterm will be, and here's the actual midterm right here. The majority of the midterm will be week 1 and week 2 stuff from this CDS guide. Okay, with that being said, that's when I stop this recording and ask for any questions.